I'm doing my install my ARB compressor. It's for the CKMA12, and it's the high output ARB compressor. And hopefully it'll go easy. I'm gonna have to hook it up to my Yukons. I've never done this before, but we'll see how it goes. And I like the high output because it gives you the ability to air up also, so it actuates or activates your lockers, and it lets you air up. So I'm using my directions that came with it. They're ARB. And I'm also using a write-up from projectjk.com on the ARB compressor. It seems a lot more simple. And so far all I've done is I've mounted my Synergy mounting plate, which is this. Hooks up down here to the master cylinder. There's two little bolts on the bottom, and then you mount your compressor on top, and that's basically all I've done so far. You also have to reroute some of these vacuum hoses and brake lines, and I don't know if it's brake lines, but vacuum hoses and stuff to make room for the compressor that sits right there. So this is what comes with the kit. You have a bag full of wires here. And I think this is a mounting plate, but if you, I talked to 4 Wheel Parts, and they recommended, when I did my other JK, getting this one because it mounts it higher in the engine compartment, and they said that they've had problems if they mount it lower with sucking water up into the compressor, and that'll just toast your compressor. So on my other JK, they did this and they mounted up here, so I'm just kind of following their lead. I got this is from Synergy. So to start out, you basically just mount your mounting bracket and your compressor there, and then you start by removing this plastic plug, and you install your round big ARB, I guess this is an air filter. And I don't believe you use Teflon tape on this, but you just screw it into the front like this. Be careful not to cross-thread it because it's plastic. So I got my air filter in place, and then you, back for this red plastic plug here, you take your pressure sensor and you put some Teflon tape on it. You remove the red plug that was on the end and put Teflon tape on it. It's nice because ARB made it so you can swivel this whole unit. You can swivel this piece back here by loosening this 10mm bolt, and then also you can swivel the whole unit by loosening these 2 hex heads, or actually it's the wrong size, but hex Allen bolts basically. Just loosen them up, and then you can do the whole unit, get things into place, and then finally when you're done, get the whole unit set up exactly how you want it. This was easier. You just put the Teflon tape on, remove the red plug, put the Teflon tape on and screw it in. Okay, so this is the solenoid, and I actually had to uninstall it to get it on. I'm putting it back together now. I didn't get that in the instructions, and if you're doing the JK, Project JK instruction, it also gives you instructions. They include instructions for the optional air kit, which goes here. I don't have that yet. I'm going to get it later. So don't let that confuse you, because they talk about a 3-way here. And it doesn't have it if you don't buy that kit. You don't have the 3-way valve, you know, for the hose. So anyways, I got the solenoid on. I've been working on getting my 2 solenoids in place, and it's been a pain. The problem was I couldn't turn this one right here. I couldn't turn this one right here because of this manifold that was in the way, and it's all made out of aluminum, so I was afraid to damage it. I couldn't twist the manifold off of the tank right here. This was the connection that was stuck. So just trying to figure out, you're just going, what am I doing wrong? What am I not seeing? And it just couldn't get that loosened. So finally, after not being able to figure it out, I took it out, put it in a vise, wrapped some paper around the tank. This is all aluminum, it's very easily damaged, and then just tapped this off, and it just came off pretty easily, but I couldn't twist it off with my hands. Got it back together. Now I just need to hook up my solenoids and the rest of my wiring. I ran the wiring harness through, see it going right through there, right through there, and it goes in. There's a foam filled hole back in the bulkhead or the firewall back in here, and you kind of drill it out, and then you can run it into your dash. And this is all the wiring. This is what the harness looks like. You've got just several switches. Got that connector right there, and then it says switch 1, switch 2, isolating switch. Also, since I have 2 solenoids now, I figured out what this extra electrical connection is for. It's for the second solenoid. If you're doing 2 lockers, front and rear, you need the 2 solenoids. If you're just doing 1, which is what I have on my Ruby over there, because I still have the stock rear locker, you know, the Jeep locker, which I think sucked, but I got the ARB front, so I only needed 1 of these solenoids on that air compressor over there. But since I'm doing front and back Yukons on this one, I need the 2. These are the wiring harnesses that come with the compressor. And the next step says to lay the long wiring harness that comes with the ARB air compressor along your firewalls of the Jeep JK Wrangler so that it extends to the battery and from the battery to the brake booster. Then attach the 2 plugs onto the pressure switch as shown in the pic. This is the wiring harness that comes with the compressor, and it's very long. It's about 12 feet long. So this is the relay that comes with the ARB compressor right here, and I riveted it to the bulkhead, and it snaps together. The wiring snaps to this top and bottom, so you snap it together, and then you either zip tie it or I riveted it. You put the fuse somewhere where it'll be protected and accessible, and you zip tie it to the existing harness under here. Put your red on the positive, obviously black negative. They supply these ends, and you're probably gonna have to cut your wires because they're made for different applications. And then you bring your ground around, and this is your ground. You bring your ground around, put it through here, and you actually put an end on it and put the ground right there on the body. You have to hook up the 3 switches, 1 for the compressor activation and 2 for the lockers. And then I've got to hook up these 2 wires. This one goes to the ACC or whatever you call it, where the key is on, it has power. So I got to figure out how to splice that one in. The blue and white wire goes into the active illumination supply. So I guess that's just to keep them lit up when you're using, or you know, at night, I guess. I'm running my lines for my lockers now. The compressor's pretty much done. I'm not 100% sure if it's leak free yet, but I'm running the lines front and rear. The way you have to activate them is you start the compressor and then you activate the rear, I believe, and then the front. So it's good to line your switches up. It's good to line your switches that way so that you just do it in order. And then I'm running them down. I'm using this extra clear tubing to protect it, because I had so many problems on my 08 with the ARBs that First time they put it too close to the exhaust, and then they just leak after leak. So I figure this extra tubing hopefully will do the job of protecting the line, because the line is actually quite thin. Here's the actual line that runs through the lockers. Try to keep it away from the exhaust for sure. I drilled 2 holes in this plastic panel. You can see them right here. And I dropped it down through there. Like I said, I have my extra tubing to protect it. You have to protect it against chafing, rubbing, heat. You have to give it plenty of slack for suspension, you know, your articulation. So I'm gonna drop it down that plastic plate. I'm running it down my shock mount here. Kind of like with my, same spot where my differential vent tubing is. And then I'm gonna hit that lower control arm and run it down there to the axle. And right there's the bulkhead fitting. After running my line down the shock mount, I come over here and I attach it to my control arm, run it down, and just got to be careful to leave enough slack so that you can get your, it doesn't stress it on when you get suspension flex. And then you come over here, run it down and hook it up to your bulkhead fitting up there. So my front lockers aren't leaking. My rear lockers have a leak down at the axle. So I think everything's working. I got my hose kit put on. Everything's working except I got a leak down here at the axle. So in the instructions it says make sure you use a super sharp knife to to cut the hose. And I'm wondering if I deformed it a little because yeah, I think it's leaking right around here on the push in, where you push it in. So we will try it again. Well, I got that sealed finally. These are called push-in fittings on the bulkhead connectors, and you have to, this is a flange you push in and pull out. And it was a little tricky to get it to seal, but I think I got it properly seated in there to now where it's sealed, and hopefully we'll see in a minute if it's activating the lockers. Getting close to the end of my build here. I've got my lockers hopefully done. Now you can see the 3 switches right there. And gonna give it a try. Lock it in my driveway and just see if I can get it to squeak a little, but we'll see what happens. And after that, I mean, I've got my compressor, my locker's done, I hope. Then after that, winch, and eventually skid plates and a transfer case, but that'll probably come later. I've had the Jeep for about 4 months, almost 4 months, 3.5, 4 months, and I still only got 152 miles because it's been sitting in my driveway getting built most of the time. It sounds good with this new MagnaFlow and the manual transmission. Also, it sounds like a sports car compared to my 08 with the automatic. This thing sounds almost like a Ferrari compared to that thing. So let's give it a go. So to activate your lockers, you have to do it in sequence. First you turn your, I put them in order starting right to left. You turn your compressor on, then you have to put it in order. You go rear and then front. So you have to go compressor, rear, and then front. The front won't activate unless the rear is activated.